Well, come on in. Come on. You're in the principal's office. Don't be scared. We are here today, another day, where you get to join me on this show as we talk about issues that are current and relevant around the Black community and education. I'm your host, Michelle Pennix, otherwise known as Principal Pennix, and today I'm excited because we are going to get to the bottom of some crucial issues affecting our community. Our show will always be honest and it will always be solution focused. We're here to support you, our viewers, as we learn together so we can grow together so that we're better together. I'm excited because today's show, we're going to be talking about a topic that not many of you are as familiar with, but it is a topic that is affecting most of us in our community right now. And as we delve into the gray digital divide, I hope to share more and more with you about why it is so necessary that we bring this information to you today. So in today's show, as we talk about the digital divide, we're going to label it the gray digital divide. Because as we've shared in previous weeks, we like to talk about all things related to education, but not just for our children in kindergarten through 12th grade and above, but we also like to talk about adult education. And today we want to focus on senior education. And to do that, we are titling this show, The Gray Digital Divide. We've heard a lot in our community about the digital divide, but now let's talk about how it affects our older community, the gray-haired citizens in our community, as again, we label this the gray digital divide. I want to start by giving you a couple of stories that I've experienced personally with those who are in my personal circle and their experiences with technology. First, I'll begin with a story about my mom. So my mom, God rest her soul, several years ago was gifted an iPhone as a birthday gift. And this is only about 4 or 5 years ago, so maybe 2015, 2016. And she was gifted this iPhone after a lot of hesitancy around even upgrading to an iPhone, because before then she had had what many of you might have out there, a flip phone. And we finally convinced her this was the time, you can do this. So we bought her an iPhone and she was very hesitant about using it. And so we had several members of the family go and try to assist her in doing it. And she would toy around with it, but never really got comfortable. And one day, I'll never forget, I was driving down the street, and sure enough, what she was comfortable doing on it was making telephone calls. And my phone rings, and she says to me, "Michelle, you won't believe this." And I say, "Mom, what is it? You won't believe what this phone can do." And I said, "Yeah, I've been telling you that." She said, "Did you know you can get on the internet with your phone?" And that to me was hilarious because we had shared with her so many times how she could finally go to the steveharvey.com show and find out everything she wanted to. But even in her older age, she was not comfortable with taking new chances. Fast forward a little bit to the story I had just a few weeks ago with a grandmother who called and was seeking tutoring support for her child. And when I inquired a little bit more, she said, "This is my granddaughter. I have 3 in the home with me during the day, and unfortunately, I don't have a clue about technology." She said, "Ms. Pennix, I can do a lot of things, but technology and how to operate their Chromebooks and figure out what's going on, I'm just clueless about." And so we understand that because in this season, so many of you are at home with your grandkids or your children, and you have to be even more comfortable in order to be able to assist them. And finally, I'll share my experience with a church member who, when we converted from in-person services to Zoom services and Facebook services on Sundays, we are about 6 months into it, and still when she comes onto the Zoom, all we can see is her ceiling. She hasn't yet figured out how to put her face in the frame, although she desperately wants to. So I gave those 3 examples because those are all 3 people in our community, 3 people who are special to me that are over the age of 50, 65, and even 70, and have great difficulty making that transition of the digital divide, learning how to operate technology appreciatively and knowing how to use that technology to aid them in their everyday life. So today, as we talk about the digital divide, we've got a couple special things we want to share. First of all, let's get to the source of this activity. Do you know that the largest group of Americans right now in the United States is over the age of 50? The greatest generation and those older baby boomers have now reached an age that make them the majority of citizens in the United States of America. Most Americans over the age of 50. Well, what do those Americans say about technology? 75% of them, a full 3/4 of them, are totally uncomfortable with using technology. And you might have heard that in the story that I shared about my mom, or the grandmother who just says, I'm not used to this. I can't navigate this. Second, that same group of people say they need help setting up technology, even learning, and I know that you have experiences, where's the on button? Or maybe you've even logged in and you don't have to be over the 50 to say, what's my password? I forgot it again. That's the group of people we're talking about. 50% of that population have no access at all at home. In order to use technology, they usually are with someone else at the time or assisted through community services to even use technology. And last but not least, 30% of the population in America over the age of 50 have never used the computer at all. Have never used the computer at all. A full 30% of the people over the age of 50. And that are some of the reasons for the great digital gray divide. We need to change that. I'll give you an example. Even in the city of San Francisco, in the great state of California, which is the tech capital of the world, home to Google, home to Facebook, that city has a full 40% of their over age 50 citizens who do not even have basic literacy digital skills. So in the city where technology rules, a full 40% of their citizens over the age of 50 still do not have basic literacy skills. Skills like turning on, operating a mouse, knowing how to operate Windows, knowing how to search on the internet. Those are the things that make the digital divide even stronger than they've ever been. And so let's look for a few minutes into some of the reasons why we're at this point. Right now, in our state of Kentucky and in Jefferson County, you have to know that a full 11,000 students are being cared for on a daily basis or live with their grandparents. Grandparents who are over the age of 50, sometimes a little bit younger. A full 11,000 students. And when we think about those who only get dropped off maybe during the day, we might be talking about another 11 on top of that. With those kind of numbers, it's important that the parents and grandparents that we leave our students with during the day have an opportunity to assist and tutor. But it's even greater than that as we go through this conversation to learn why technology is so important to those people as well. Having said that, we know that tech has been the only thing to help many of us survive over the last 6 months. With COVID-19 coming upon us in March, it became evident that we would use technology more than ever in digital platforms to communicate with the outside world. I mentioned an example that many of you who tune into the show each week are probably most familiar with, and that's our church services. Connecting to one another through the use of technology has been paramount as we've learned to navigate this season of social distancing. When we talk about wanting to communicate with family and friends, it's been necessary to use technology to do that. And so if you do not have access for whatever reasons, or you're not competent for whatever reasons, then you have been disconnected from your community, maybe your family and your friends. And so when we delve into exactly why is the use of technology so difficult for so many, what do people over the age of 50 say about the use of technology and reasons why they may not be as connected as we'd want them to be? Well, first and foremost, they tell us that there's a fear of learning. And that is not unique to the people over the age of 50. I can tell you some 6-year-olds that are scared about learning new things. All of us go through that at some point with new things that come into our view. But senior citizens and those over the age of 50 in particular talk about the fact that there's a fear of learning new things. Have you ever put a computer in front of someone who is older and immediately they shake their heads? No, thank you. I don't want to learn about that. Well, that may be one reason. Another is its difficulty with use, thinking that some of the programs are not as easy to navigate as others, especially as we talk about tutoring and assisting our young children. Next, there's a lack of interest altogether. Some older citizens in our community don't feel as though there's anything really to get out of using the computer. What can I learn from that? Everything I need to know, I know, or I can be taught. I don't need to use the computer. Might have been words that you've heard or phrases that you've heard uttered. And finally, but also substantially, it's actually access to the computer and to all things digital. And when we talk about access, we're talking about actually having the computer, the technology available to them in their own home, where they can access it at any time that they want. When we talk about the great digital divide, we have to know that those are the reasons. So I want you to take that information and interpret it for yourself. What does that mean for your family member, your loved one? Is there really a fear of learning, a lack of interest? Is it difficulty with use, or do they just not have technology accessible to them? It's important that you know why so that you can understand how to help them both. When we talk about the importance of staying connected, it's important that you be able to communicate with family and friends. If you have grandparents or grandchildren across the United States, maybe another city, and these times we have many of our seniors in nursing homes and living longer facilities that do not allow family to come in and visit. And so it's important that we have some way to communicate with family and friends, and technology allows us to do that through a number of different programs. It also allows us to connect with the outside world through Twitter, through Facebook, through social media forms, through email even. The use of technology allows us to do that. It also allows us to meet new friends and to have regular conversations with them. And that may occur also through the use of social media or through email, through some sort of correspondence. But even as I was relayed to recently, some adults who have gotten hooked on Words with Friends, which is a game that you can play against total strangers and become competitive with and even better at and keep constant contact with. And finally, another important reasons why our seniors and people we love over the age of 50, and let me do a caveat there. If you are over 50, I'm not calling you a senior yet. But making sure that those people we love over the age of 50 also use technology to handle business. And when we talk about business in this age of 2020 and technology, you have to know that so much business occurs over the internet. One, if you watch any commercial or product and you are interested in that, most likely there is no longer a 1-800 number to call. Instead, it is go to thissite.com for more information. Well, if you don't have access and it's not available to you, there is no way for you to contact that company. And if they do leave a number, it will probably tell you to go to the website for additional information. Telehealth. Going to see your doctor. Many doctors now, because of COVID, say we can do this over Skype or over Zoom in a teleconference as opposed to actually coming into the office. Reading your medical report. I know that earlier this summer when I had a COVID test, they told me the diagnosis would come back through the computer, through an application I would have to download. If you don't have access, it's not easy to get those results. Also, we talk about all the things that you can do online, not only working with your child, your grandchild, and tutoring, but maybe it's also looking up information about your taxes or paying bills online. There are so many things that our seniors and loved ones need to do online that they must have technology to be able to do. So it's not okay for them to step away and apart from society. We need them to stay a part of society and to stay with us in that vein. So as always, we've never wanted to present an issue that we didn't have a solution to. And so on Principal's Office today, I want to offer you 3 solutions for you or for your loved one to consider in bridging that digital divide. And this goes back for several years. We've been talking about the digital divide since the late 80s and early 90s. We are now in a season where it is not a choice, but it is mandatory. And so how do we close that gap for the people in our lives that we love? Well, first and foremost, affordability is an option, and it is key. We have to find ways to make access to technology affordable. It is not always easy. So this is where the church, the community comes together to provide opportunities that those who we love over the age of 50 can purchase technology at a much discounted rate. As a community, it's a conversation that is beginning to happen through the Greater Louisville Project and other churches and other centers in our community who are looking at ways to be creative. One of those actually has to do with going into senior citizens' homes and locations, sites and apartments and living facilities, and offering classes, and not only in training, but in how to be able to afford and how to budget to make sure that you have your own technology in your home. So affordability is key. Second is tech design, and this is something that's kind of out of most of our hands, but I know that there are many of us in our community who do have an affinity for tech design and all things engineering and technologically related. And if those are the case, then we need more people in the field who are designing technology that is easy to use for our senior citizens. A few years ago, there was a different version of the flip phone that came out just for senior citizens. Larger buttons, simpler to use, connections that was very accessible to our senior population. We need more programs that design that same way. And so we need to talk about affordability. We need to talk about text design. And last but certainly not least, and the most important, because whether it's in your own home or whether it's something that's easy to operate, you still need training partnerships. And this is where I get really excited about education and how we can all play a part. Seniors have a difficult time transcribing what we say over the phone into real action on the computer or on technology. So how we can help with that is more one-on-one assistance. One-on-one assistance is also an opportunity to volunteer in your community or even to create a small entrepreneurship business that may cause you to provide services to the community, to work and partner with senior citizen homes or families that want to hire you to work one-on-one with their loved one for an hour a day or an hour a week so they can be confident in some of the programs and applications that we've talked to. Affordability, tech design, and training partnerships are key to making sure that we close the digital divide. A lot of information, but I hope information that you can use. I'm Michelle Pennix, or Principal Pennix to most, and that's a wrap for today. You've been the best. This conversation continues next week, same time, same place, and we'll continue our conversation about education and how it affects the Black community. I hope we'll see you then, right here, all the time. As always, please remember, to God be the glory.